Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our latest installment of our Logic course at St. Augustine's Vandal Catholic in Moscow, Idaho. It is also, if it's number 20 or 30 something, it's like high 20s, 30 of Logic. It's number 60 something of overall maple syrup history. I think, perhaps the most abstract class for you that we've ever done. In this Logic course, as all of you know, we've proceeded from the philosophers, Aristotle and Plato, Cicero, through Aquinas, the Middle Ages, Descartes. And recently we just got done, the kind of recent set about 10 days ago or so with G.K. Chesterton. As we end the semester, we only have 3 classes after this, with which we'll be diving deeply into David Foster Wallace, postmodern literature. What can that tell us about logic or the absence of logic? Today is a both fully recreational and very serious course. You see on the board, I have written in red ink, I don't know how well you can see that, but philosopher and football coach. Today is a tribute to the great, late Michael Leach. That is why I'm wearing a WSU sweatshirt. I'm a proud Coug myself, but I'm also a proud Vandal, and especially love being a member of Vandal Catholic. All of us here on this nation of the Palouse, sincerely. I love these kind of interconnected webs and threads. Mike Leach had a deep connection to WSU. He recently passed away, may God rest his soul, in December of 2022, while he was still the head football coach at Mississippi State University, which I will say as well, on a purely kind of personal level, again, it's a deep connection to myself. That's where I got my PhD from. I spent 5 years at Mississippi State. And before that, though, Mike Leach, Washington State was kind of his midpoint in his career. He really made his name as the head football coach in Lubbock, Texas Tech Red Raiders, then went to WSU, was there from 2012 to 2019, and finished up at Mississippi State. I'm not even joking right now when I talk about the philosopher and the football coach. He indeed was. So I'm going to start reading to you. There's going to be kind of 3 parts of this lecture today. I'm going to read you his bio, a little bit of info about him, the reasoning why we're talking about him, why we're including him in a logic and philosophy course. And then I'm going to read his quotes. And we're actually going to go back and look at the plumber's logic thing that I showed you. The little kind of algorithm that we have. And we're going to say, how much does what Mike Leach talks about, how much does it work in tandem with some of these principles, with plumber's logic, so to speak. So get comfortable and we'll get started with that. Betsy, I saw that you said hi. A very sincere hello to you and everyone listening on the stream. Okay, so Mike Leach, he was born in 1961, dies in 2022, 61 years old. He was born in California, but grows up in Cody, Wyoming. Okay. I'm not going to give this quote today, except now. It's not going to be part of the full format of his philosophy, so to speak. But Mike Leach once was like, people from Chicago want to talk about wind, windy city. Cody, Wyoming destroys them. Our wind owns their wind. He grew up in Wyoming, graduated from Cody High School. He was a football player in high school, as you might expect. But here's where the first kind of turn. Mike Leach is all things interesting. He was widely beloved. And I will confess a deep, deep love for the late coach Mike Leach. But even amongst his, I'd say, very few minuscule detractors, they were just like, he's a great guy. He's jovial and he's very, very unique. We throw that word around too much. This is a unique person. They're interesting. They're a character. And usually it's not fair because it's like, no, they're not. They're kind of normal. Mike Leach was not. And here's one of the first kind of like turns in his life, in a lifetime of very, very cool things. He's a college football coach, right? So he played football in college, right? No, he played rugby in college. He was recruited, made him a better football coach. He was recruited by the way, he grows up, he's Mormon. He grows up in the Mormon faith. So naturally, like a lot of Mormon kids, BYU is certainly going to be on your radar for college. And he was recruited to play football at BYU, but for some reason it doesn't work out, something with an injury or et cetera. And I say et cetera with kind of that specificity. I don't want to give, I don't know the exact reason, so I don't want to give a false reason why. I just know he was not able to play college football, but he played college rugby. That's interesting. How about in 1986, he earns a Juris Doctor from Pepperdine. He's a lawyer as well. I don't know if there's any football coaches currently in any level of college football that are lawyers, that have a law degree. He didn't study law, or he grew up in his, uncle's, in the shadow of his uncle's law firm, kind of like, tooling about, and, well, the law is kind of in my blood, but he earned a JD, a Juris Doctor from Pepperdine Law School. Pepperdine, by the way, absolutely fantastic name. That's a great name for a school. On names alone, just sounds amazing.
What state is that?
Pepperdine's in California. Pepperdine is in California. It's in Malibu. Yeah. Right. He also gets a Master of Sports Science from the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama. So 3 cool things: rugby player, master's degree, and lawyer. And then before we get into like the nitty gritty of his final bio of like his coaching, he coaches football in Pori, Finland, which is so boss. He has all this wealth of experience, college rugby player. While he was playing rugby at BYU, he's also kind of on the informal staff, perhaps, or kind of like an informal advisor to the legendary BYU coach, Lavelle Edwards. Lavelle Edwards would have him kind of in the film room, whatever. So he's kind of proximate around this. One of his early jobs is coaching the Pori Bears in the Finnish football league. Yes, Brett.
Soccer or football?
Yeah. Real football, American football, as we call football. Yeah, not FUTBOL. Good, but see, I love your questions, because Mike Leach would have been hired as a soccer coach. Why not? I mean, he's a rugby playing a lawyer, so they probably be like, yeah, you can coach decathlon, you can be the golf coach. Yeah, he's just a man of all. He's truly the first kind of reasoning for doing this. Above all, Mike Leach seemed to be a guy who was very much about having fun in the proper way. What I mean is, like, it's easy enough to have fun. So let's go on a roller coaster, or, let's go party. It's like he, in the midst of being serious, understood, as we said in this class, that the opposite of serious is not fun. The opposite of serious is not serious, right? Mike Leach was a guy who was very serious and very excellent in his work. Fantastic football coach. So very serious, but also very goofy and fun, and could do both at the same time. So that's kind of the number one reason why we're talking about him. I'd say it's nice to have it's nice to have a real fun class, and a class has often been, I don't know if dry is the correct word, but when you're reading Cicero and Boethius, I mean, it's serious material, right? And I think Mike Leach was this last of the dying breed of these Renaissance men. He truly was a guy who, like, I want to use all the talent I've been blessed with. Why can I not get a law degree and be a football coach? But we do bifurcate those things. You can be the nerd who's in the chemistry lab, or the football player. You can't be both. And he was more. But yes, he is not coaching soccer in Finland, although, again, it would fit his biography perfectly. He's coaching American football in Finland. Now, okay, again, his 3 big jobs: Texas Tech, which, by the way, at Texas Tech, they do not have the same budget as like UT Austin or Texas A&M. I am an incurable football fan. I don't know how much all of you know about football, but like Texas Tech is not in the same class. They were in the same conference, the Big 12. What I mean is, it's like, Boise, right? Boise is the capital city. Pocatello and Twin Falls and Moscow, they're in Boise's class. They're large cities in Idaho. There's one capital, right? There's one place. Boise is the city. In Texas, UT Austin, the Longhorns, that's the school, and second big budget, Texas A&M. Texas Tech is like the third brother, the middle child. Leach would even say, I watched an interview with him once, that we get the players who, don't get into Texas or whatever kind of thing. An academic example might be like, the schools that are second tier, but all the kids who couldn't get into Harvard or whatever. Now, again, life being what it is, often these people that don't make the top tier end up succeeding beyond whoever else because they found the perfect fit and blah, 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 blah. But at Texas Tech, Leach, with not the largest budget, takes the Red Raiders, I think at one point, to the #1 ranking. They upset UT Austin in 2007 or 2008. He wins like a Coach of the Year award for that. He wins the Big 12 Coach of the Year in 2008. the Woody Hayes Trophy in 2008, the George Munger Award, these national awards for doing what, unthinkable is too strong. But Texas Tech is not usually one of the big boys, making them one of the big boys through his very inventive kind of style. If you are on a last kind of like football nerd point, if you're like, what is inventive about Mike Leach? He was another kind of feather in his cap. He basically, along with a couple other guys, makes mainstream the air raid offense. From a purely football we're going to get to all the logic. We're going to get to all the way he fits this class. But from a purely football sense, he makes popular the idea. If you go watch a football game now, an empty backfield, no fullback, no tailback, quarterback with 5 wide receivers and throwing the ball literally 70, 80 times a game. So very exciting style. He invents that kind of. I think actually right before he becomes Texas Tech head coach, he's hired to be the offensive coordinator, planner of the offense at University of Oklahoma, and takes their offense from like dead last in the Big 12 to number 1. And almost every year, his offense has led the country and stuff. If anyone remembers, I don't know how much you know football, but Gardner Minshew was the WSU quarterback a couple years ago on the Palouse. 4 years ago, he was a Heisman Trophy. He was talked about in the Heisman Trophy kind of conversation, and they were number 1 in passing offense. That was very typical for Leach. Ryan Alexander, good morning. Our lecture today, you caught up is philosopher and football coach talking about Mike Leach. That's next week. David Foster Wallace this week starts on Wednesday. But today we're talking about Mike Leach. You've come at the perfect time. Just did his biography to get you caught up in 5 seconds. Football coach at Texas Tech, Mississippi State, where he died in December. Cougs football coach for 7 years. But I said he truly is a Renaissance man. In addition to being one of the most colorful, philosophical, most quotable people, which we're going to get to, which we're gaining towards. He college football coach who didn't play football in college, played rugby. He earned a JD from Pepperdine. He actually became a lawyer. It wasn't like, approximately he comes from a lawyer family, and he coached football in Finland. That's what you missed. Okay, so Texas Tech is where he kind of develops a reputation. And again, to not be too repetitive, and I want to get to the good stuff. Remember, Texas Tech, Cougs, and then Mississippi State. His awards are he wins a Pac-12 North Division title here at WSU and the South Division in 2008 Texas Tech. Talked about his National Coach of the Year awards. He's 2-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year on the Palouse in 2015, 2018. His overall record is 158 wins and 107 losses. It's very, very good. Almost like 60% winning with, again, remember that kind of UT paradigm. He never had the best players. He always was very much like making the most of kind of very good players, but, a true kind of genius. Okay. Now, I think I've talked that to death enough, or that's enough information. Who he was, Renaissance man, football coach, and philosopher. I want to go to our plumber logic sheet. Betsy Johnson is so kind to, clean this up. There was like a dark spot in this PDF. We haven't talked about this in a while, but for anyone who's watching this for the first time, in this class, as we've gone through Aristotle and Plato and Cicero and Boethius and Aquinas, we've asked, right? Okay, number 1, first there's 4 eye tests, right? Is it a matter of faith? Well, in Mike Leach comments, no, right? Mike Leach, I don't know how devout of a Mormon he was, LDS. I don't know how practicing or not he was. I guarantee you Mike Leach would not say, yeah, the things I said as quotes, which many of them I find just absolutely hilarious. And he was just a comic genius too. It's almost like philosopher, comedian, and football coach. They're not religious texts, so we can cancel that out. When we're going to go through Mike Leach's comments, and I want you to ask, are they logical? Do they make sense? And I'm being dead serious. There's going to be a lot of funny, weird stuff he said. I'm being serious. Is he a kind of postmodern philosopher that's going to nicely transition us into 3 classes of David Foster Wallace? Is it religious? No. Okay, so that's X. So then we move on to plain stated. Are we going to be able to tell from plain stated stuff if it's true or not? Like Mike Leach said about disco, what a dark time for our country. End quote. So is that enough? No, I think you got to go deeper. John Travolta in the 70s, and they got to go. I'm serious. It's going to be, remember, the opposite of funny is not serious. It's not funny. Mike Leach is very funny, very serious, I think. As a football genius, air raid master, and as a philosopher, I am dead serious. And I'm the kind of person who hates like philosophy in The Simpsons, philosophy in TikTok. I hate that crap. Mike Leach actually legit, maybe comes from his kind of gravitas. He actually has a legit educational background as a real lawyer, as having a Pepperdine law degree. I think Mike Leach actually is really, really, really interesting. Really interesting. No, it's probably not plain stated. So then remember context and authority. What's the context? It's usually him, although his position and authority is football coach. That's not some kind of philosophical chair. He's not a pope. What's the context? Usually him off the cuff. Most of his quotes are kind of on the field, reporters or press conferences. Purpose and goal. I would say his purpose and goal, he's very plumber. He's very blue collar. It's the truth. This class is all about what is true. I think Leach was trying to say true things. I think he's trying to be true. He's trying to be funny, maybe, but he's true. Contradictions or paradoxes. I love that we're following Mike Leach, following Chesterton with Leach. Chesterton is the prince of paradox. Let Mike Leach hold your beer. Mike Leach is very paradoxical. It's kind of funny. The fallacies, that's going to be fun. Remember, straw man fallacy, red herring fallacy, ad populum fallacy. Does he appeal to these? I don't know. And then you got to triple plane state it. You got to say, what does it mean? So let's get to talking about his quotes and see what's here. And again, I swear to all of you, I am being dead serious. I would not waste your time with nonsense. I've spent times like laughing so hard by his quotes, it hurts my ribs. He's so funny. I'm not looking for laughs. I'm not looking for goof. I'm looking for real philosophy. Quote number 1. You have 30 quotes. Ready? I'm going to read these. I typed these out phonetically, for lack of a better word, including well, kind of like off his videos even. I mean, I went hardcore archival research on Mike Leach quotes. They're as they actually were said. Number 1, ready? Quote, I hope there's Bigfoot. I doubt there is. Not to throw a whole shadow over the rainy forest in Washington where there's already a lot of shadows. I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we found bones of dinosaurs and everything else. We haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot. It would be fun if there's Bigfoot. I hope there's Bigfoot. My guess is there's not. What do you all think? Okay, well, thoughts on Bigfoot, thoughts on what I think the deeper thing is here is like Joseph Campbell, famous kind of, anthropologist myth, kind of like these mythological prototypes. Maybe you've heard of Campbell before, right? Okay, you've heard of Campbell. Awesome. Why is Washington State so obsessed with Bigfoot? He makes this quote, obviously, when he's the Cougs coach. Is there this kind of like Washington State we know is one of the most nuns region, N-O-E-N-S, very kind of secular. Is Bigfoot some kind of like, and this would be obviously awful, some kind of substitute kind of religious thing that people need to believe in this kind of guy? And he's here saying like, I have sympathy for that. But he's like, I hope there is. He's again, a lot of these quotes, he's using humor, but he's obviously mocking it. But at the same time, he's like, well, it'd be kind of cool if there was, but I don't think there is. What do you all think? Is Bigfoot real? Why are people obsessed with Bigfoot?
Claims that we heard one who was camping once in the Northwest, the sound that it makes during the night.
Okay, so again,
here's little bits of it that way.
Okay, so this is the last time I'll say this, and I promise. Everything we say today is dead serious. So when I say we're gonna take everything totally seriously, just in the court of pure blue collar logic. Okay, so your brother claims he's like, why do people do that? Do you think because they really believe it? Is he just trying to report facts? Is it wish fulfillment? I just like want there to be this Bigfoot. There's this famous, if anyone wants to look this up, the Patterson-Gimlin film, which is the 10-second film of the she Bigfoot walking like this, turning the head for 10 seconds in California in 1967. And that's apparently the strongest evidence. And then of course, someone says, no, it's a person in a suit. Stop it. You're a moron. I mean, why do people believe in this Bigfoot myth, even kind of like that? Your brother's explanation is perfect. Well, I can't deny it. Maybe the fallacy here is, talking about fallacy check, fallacy here is burden of proof. Well, you prove there's no Bigfoot. No. You have to, Leach is saying here, Leach is being a great philosopher saying, I don't think there is. The burden of proof is on people to prove that he's real. Not that, oh, he probably is real. No. Leach is being a really kind of like tight wound philosopher here. What are your thoughts? So your brother says that, is Bigfoot real?
He's got Yeti on his license plate and he's really.
He does. He is into it. I think that's cool. I'm not even kidding. If he's a normal person who like is a good family man job, that's awesome. It's a cool hobby. I think Bigfoot is freaking sweet. Like I have no doubt.
Well, I don't know. Somebody thoughts on that. It's like it's the desire deep in the human soul to reenchant the cosmos. I don't know.
Yeah.
Charles Dickens
Yeah.
points,
Yeah.
but But you think about, so you see, Chesterton's book on St. Francis of Assisi, he talks about how like the world, I guess similarly to O'Connor, it's like kind of God haunted. There's all sorts of like myths and woods and then very plants themselves. Everything is just imbuing things. And then in North America, we lost that in a couple counts. First, because we're materialists and we will always discount the spiritual and supernatural.
Thank you, English empiricism. Yeah.
And then second, because that mythology doesn't exist for us. To the extent it does exist, it exists for people who are mostly just outside our culture and they're not you're part of that thread.
Yeah.
Makes up who we are. At least makes up who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. That everything you said was so good, as it always is, sincerely. But I want to really focus on the desire to re-enchant the cosmos. I mean, if we live in this kind of secular materialistic as a country as a whole, but especially in the Pacific Northwest, I run into so many people in this area who are just like, yeah, I'm not religious at all. I'm not anti-religious. I'm just like, maybe there is this idea of re-enchant. We need myths. We need fairy tales. We need forest monsters. Quote number 2. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, paralleling Bigfoot with UFOs. Yeah, look at UFO report. I don't know. I've seen UFO report maps, and that's all in America. It's like 99% UFOs are spotted in America.
It's funny you say that because well, exactly. They're all in the desert Southwest, basically. Roswell. Leach weighed in on UFOs. I mean, he's a complete philosopher here. This guy is philosopher, comedian, and football coach. Mike Leach said, quote number 29. He suspects they exist. He said, aliens, quote, but they're probably not little green men. I suspect they exist, but they're probably not little green men. So Leach seems to be philosophically more willing, more malleable to believe in UFOs, and perhaps even as a good philosopher, where you're just talking about unidentified flying objects. And he's such an amazing, he's such a precise philosopher. He's saying number 1 qualification, UFO, what does that mean? There's unidentified stuff. And number 2, I'm saying, Mike Leach, they're not little green men. So you can't accuse me of some kind of tinfoil hat. I'm just saying it's great philosophy. He seems to be more willing to lend credence to the UFO theory than to Bigfoot. Quote number 2, and these quotes again are all over the place. They're just purely, are they logical? I think quote number 1, my verdict is yes. That the Bigfoot probably doesn't exist, but it'd be fun if he did. And maybe it's about re-enchanting the cosmos. It's awesome. He might have just said this just to be goofy, whatever. He doesn't, maybe Leach himself didn't realize how brilliant he was. Number 2, I think the most important thing is confidence. A lot of people think they're confident, but if you think about it, most people aren't. Is that true? Is the most important thing in whatever endeavor confidence? And do you think most people put up a fake it till you make it front, but they're not really confident? I think so. I think that's very logical. I don't want to accuse people of being frauds. All of us are hypocrites, but people are always kind of like, look, you got to just do the hustle. You got to grind, rise and grind, just fake it till you make it and talk a big game. And Leach is it's important to be confident, and people act this way. Do they really back it up? Probably not. He was ripping when he was at Texas Tech, he was ripping Texas A&M fans. And he's basically, they should just shut up. He's like, our fans are just as good as theirs, and they spend all week talking about our fans. Real fans focus on the game, not. And he's exactly. A lot of people talk a big game, they're confident, maybe they're not. Quote number 3, when the Egyptians were building the pyramids, or the Romans were building roads, or you had the westward push with the railroads, I don't think the guys in the ground were spending a lot of time thinking, hey, hundreds of thousands of years from now, they will look back at the brick I've just laid down here and say, I changed the world. That's amazing. In the process of getting great stuff done, perhaps if you focus on the greatness or the hype or the buzz, you don't actually do the work. Maybe there's 2 choices in life. Do the job or try to get the hype, but you can't do both. These guys did change the world. Maybe they changed the world because their nose is on the grindstone. What does Christ say in the Gospels? Whoever sets his hand to the plow and looks to what was before is not worthy of the kingdom. Keep your head focused ahead. Keep your focus, on what's ahead. Don't look to the past. Because Leach was a football coach, you can imagine him saying this, forget that last play. You drop the wide open pass. If you keep moping and pouting about that, you're going to drop the next pass. Focus. The guys who did these things that we could definitely say, you know, the Roman road system, I would argue as a historian, is unparalleled except for the Incan roads in the Andes Mountains and the Eisenhower interstate system. They're one of the greatest road systems of all time. The Romans, and yeah, plumbing, absolutely. The Romans, the plumbing, aqueducts, the Romans were the most amazing kind of engineering people. I think Leach is getting at something funny here, something true here. It's fun. All his quotes are so funny, but he's using a comedic veneer to say something very profound. Maybe when you're trying to get real stuff done, the greatest enemy of that is like, hey, let me take a selfie of this. Hey, let me live stream this. Hey, let's put this on TikTok. Shut up and work. And people will never talk about your work if you're too busy like liking your video and stuff. I don't know. Okay, quote number 4. If you get into a fight, don't take your helmet off. We're looking for smart football players, not dumb ones. Thoughts on this?
Acknowledging the reality of what's that trauma, head-centered trauma.
Yeah, CTE.
Yeah, right.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Yeah. I think this quote is great because he basically acknowledges here, Leach is acknowledging original sin. Football players are going to get into fights. We know, we see football coaches have to suspend guys, throw them off the team for misbehavior. Often it's something stupid like drag racing after a party. You know, guy did 100 miles an hour after, you know, being on some kind of on-campus party to impress people, and or he, you know, got in trouble with the law somehow. The most common misbehavior on the field is getting into a fight. I mean, this is really like all the like the word. The funniest thing about football is like if you have two rival teams, like here, like WSU and UW, or back when the Vandals used to play the Broncos, teams might come out to midfield and start talking trash back and forth. And Leach is saying, if you get into a fight, he's like, meaning like the world is fallen. Our guys are going to get into a fight. Don't take your helmet off. Because I'm not so concerned. I might even like think if you get into a fight, it shows you're supporting your brothers, you're backing your team up. If you take your helmet off and you're saying, I'm going to fight you with naked head while you have a helmet on and just get popped in the jaw, you're showing me not only are you misbehaving, you're an idiot. Get off the team. You can get into a fight once in a while. Just don't be a knight. Leach is, as you maybe know, was obsessed with military stuff. He actually knew, he was like, had a historical PhD level of like Geronimo, Native American wars. And his nickname was the Pirate. He was very interested in piracy. And he would Leach compared pirates to Vikings and said basically that it was better to be a Viking because after raiding like Denmark, you go back to your family and play with the kids, where a pirate was always on the sea. Like you compare these things to philosophy. I think I've already convinced you like how he's a legit philosophical mind. I think. This is a funny point. He's like, people are going to do this. You know, again, he's maybe not using any of these religious terms like original sin and fallen man, but people are going to get into fights. Who likes to get into fights more than testosterone drenched 20-year-old college kids? They're going to fight. He's like, just don't prove you're an idiot. Don't be like, a knight who goes into battle and before I joust you, let me remove my helmet, or I'll fight you with no armor. He's like, no. Here's some dating advice. You ready? Number 5. And it's dating advice on the Palouse. First, take her to CD's Pit House barbecue in Moscow. If she will get her hands dirty with some great BBQ, you will know you're on the right track. Is that good advice to young men? When you take, yes. First, take her to CD's Pit House BBQ in Moscow. I believe, sadly, this establishment is no longer operable. I think it's closed.
Used to be Highway 8, I believe.
Okay, so he's saying first take her. You say on your first date, this lovely young woman you're courting, you're dating, take her to this barbecue house. Quote: if she will get her hands dirty with some great barbecue, you will know you are on the right track. Is that true? If a woman is willing to like get her hands dirty in this barbecue on a first date, she's not self-conscious. She's probably the kind of woman who's not going to have a problem with like being a mom, diapers, the kind of messiness of life. Is that what he's getting at? I think it's pretty logical. I think it's pretty good. Maybe you don't want to be dating these princesses. Avoid divas, right? Isn't this? I'm telling you, like,
3-inch long nails or something.
yeah, exactly. These fake nails that shows that she's so materialistic. It's kind of TikTok queen. If she can get her hands on barbecue, she's probably a real woman. This is amazing. Quote number 6. How can it be that we laugh about England's obsession with the royal family? Speaking of, I'll read this quote in full, but King Charles III, his coronation is coming up soon, right? How can it be that we laugh about England's obsession with the royal family? At least the royal family has college degrees in military service. Is he burning America now, saying like, well, they make like they put the royal family on a pedestal. And you know how much public funds go to support the royal family, the expenditures for their houses and stuff? Maybe at least they have some worth to it. At least they've served, at least Prince William like was in some kind of helicopter service or something, and Harry too. And our version of that is what? Fill in the blank, social media star who doesn't have a college degree or military service or anything respectable except just a lot of viewers. I don't know.
Yeah, minimum requirements to be a president of the United States.
Maybe, and I wonder if Mike.
Maybe we should send that.
There's an age limit?
Yeah,
But I mean, minimum.
no, but see, no, and no,
Anything else goes, right?
well, see,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, yeah, I'm not branding you as a libertarian, but if you're very much like, well, that's enough of a limitation, but maybe you're right. Maybe Lynch would say like, Leach would say, yeah, age 35, but yeah, some service, some branch of the service, a year in the service of the Peace Corps. I don't know. Again, and I'll never put words in his mouth. We're reading his quotes as he presented them,
Sure.
but it's like, maybe he would agree with you. I know that he was very much about the parallels between football strategy and military and kind of duty and service and honor. So sure. Quote number 7, freedom of speech should be wide open as long as it doesn't incite violence. Now, this is one of the most kind of philosophical statements, period. Freedom of speech is great, but classically, you can't yell fire in a theater. Everyone's heard this. Do you agree? Freedom of speech should be wide open so long as it doesn't incite violence. And where does this come, like the hate speech? Is there hate speech? What do you all think? Is that correct? Is that logical or logical? Freedom of speech should be wide open as long as it doesn't incite violence. Why do you agree?
Because there's no, you can't go down and talk about radicals of deciding what's right. And what's
Yeah.
wrong.
Probably everyone is offended by something at some point, right?
Exactly.
So someone's always going to complain about something.
It sounds like he thinks of the same things that, or everybody thinks of the same kinds of things that he thinks of. It's just that he goes ahead and says it.
I know, yeah. Leach absolutely had that quality of the grandmother or grandfather, on the rocking chair on the front porch, Southern Georgia, Coca-Cola in hand. I've lived life, no filter, kind of. People loved that about him. And well, speaking of that, this is what he says to a female reporter after a game. And again, I can't stress enough how universally beloved by most people. I'm sure he had his haters. Everyone has haters. But most people are just really love this guy. I think people, it says love covers a multitude of sins, right? Leach really was good-hearted. I never met him ever. I never met people that knew him. I don't know anything about him on a personal level. Everything I've seen from what people wrote and said about him was he was a really good man, like a good guy. So like that obviously probably puts you in his camp. This one woman, this young woman, 40 years old, 35, I don't know, ESPN reporters asking him for marriage advice after the game. She asks him, she's like, hey, you're famous for, whatever. I'm engaged. What should we do? Here's what he says, quote, as soon as the season is over or even an off week, go elope. Trust me on that. Go elope. Because basically every female in the family is going to terrorize you guys until it's over. Once it's over, they'll be upset for a few days, but it'll be over. And then you'll cruise along and have a happy marriage, have a happy life.
Save a lot of money.
Save a lot of money, yeah.
And on one of those things you said, you're talking about having a Mormon hold your beard. Is that because the Mormon probably wouldn't drink it?
We could. That's a hilarious addition, yeah. If a Mormon held your beer, he would keep holding it and not drink it. He would just hold it. So the expression of like, hold my beer as in allow me to one up you. A Mormon literally would hold your beer as long as you like. Or perhaps he might even say, I feel uncomfortable holding this beer, but he would not drink it. But again, or you pour it out. But again, Mike Leach was raised LDS. I don't know if he was secular. We know Catholics, right, who are cultural Catholics. Like I'll speak for myself and everyone in this room, we're practicing Catholics, God willing, devout Catholics. We practice our faith. We know a lot of people that are cultural Catholics. So I'm not really, that's just my heritage. I grew up Irish Catholic, but I don't know if Leach was practicing LDS, attended, weekly services and was involved tithing. Tithing is very, very big in the Mormon community, as you know. I don't know if Leach served a mission. I couldn't find that in his biography that he went on mission as a a young man both young men and young women in the LDS church go on 2 month. I think it's 2 years for men, 18 months for girls. Which I've said many, many times, like Catholics and LDS, obviously huge differentiation on theology. And so many times how much I respect these people in the prime of their life, when a lot of their fellow students are out just getting hammered and wasted in college or going out and doing these things. I don't know how serious Leach was or not faith-wise. So
one of the reasons they say that the Mormon might pour the beard out is in our company cars, well, a lot of times the plug-in part of the cigarette lighter is always missing. The Mormons would pull that part out and toss it out the window.
they're doing the Lord's work. There you go. Removing the cigarette thing. That's old school. I don't think my car has a cigarette lighter thing anymore. They got rid of that.
See,
That's an
we
old
talked
school
about
thing.
that Just the other day, that they make. cars
No,
cigarette
I don't think they do anymore.
But you use that.
They-
cigarette
that-
lighter, so many things.
that used-
Other things.
Yeah, that used to be a cool feature. I remember as a kid being like, it's like glowing, it's sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you can plug in other stuff.
I've got an idea for a car company, federal government probably won't take it, but it's called Just a Car.
Yeah.
And it's just a car.
No media.
Comes in manual or automatic, it doesn't, you can optionally install some CD players or something, but that's it.
Yeah.
No computers.
No tech,
Wait, did
exactly.
you say somebody's doing this or you?
No, that's my idea, and
Oh, yeah.
and to sell it at half the price of every single other car in the market.
There you go.
Is that clock on your dashboard?
Yeah, there'd be clock, and there's probably some other things like backup cams that you have to install, but no fancy gadgets that up the price.
No doing a live stream social media videos while you're driving.
Backup camera.
Social media challenge.
That's kind of.
Guys, what do you think of this? Quote number 9. Well, you're going to be dead in 100 years anyway, so live dangerously. I mean, this is a philosophical question, right? That is true. We know from like the Book of Wisdom, right? It says, he who courts danger will find it. And your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. You're supposed to respect your body. At the same time, this is another just version of this carpe diem philosophy. You are going to be dead in 100 years. That's guaranteed. For all of us, probably much shorter than that. And I hope all of us here live to be 100 years old. We're not 0 right now. Well, we'll all be dead as Christians, believing in the resurrection of Christ. We have hope for eternal life. But we have work to do on this earth. So Leach is saying, get to it. You're going to be dead. Like, you're worried about asking that girl out. You're going to be dead in 100 years. Ask her out. You're worried about trying to take that job. You're going to be dead anyways. And hopefully happier than ever in heaven, et cetera, we can add. You're never gonna get this time back. You only get now, right? You only have today. It's kind of, again, a lot of his quotes, again, there's so much humor. There's so much kind of simple philosophy. Like, that's true, right? I mean, is there something about that? Like, live dangerously doesn't mean, drive 190 on your motorcycle. It can mean like, take that risk, like open that startup, go try to become an actor in Hollywood. I mean, you're going to be dead in 100 years. It is sad that I only see you and the sound is gone, Betsy Johnson says. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Betsy. But the fact that you can see me, I'd say you probably agree it's positive. More dating advice directed at young men came in 4 parts. Number 1, go to a place where she cannot order a salad, but must eat real food. And he put a footnote to this. Try to have somewhere where there's not salad, because girls will try to show off and act like all they eat is salad. So try to put them somewhere where they're in a position where they have to put real food in their mouth. Number 2, use a coupon to see how she reacts. Number three, stop using technology. It will end the human species. Your point. And number four, actually have a conversation.
To realize how much trouble that would have got me.
Yeah. Actually have a conversation is point number 4. I would enjoy the incredible college life on College Hill at WSU. But make sure you have the opportunity to talk to her a lot. That's what he said. Okay. Number 11. I don't get atheists that want to believe in ghosts. Wait. You can't have a two-way go on that. You want to be agnostic, be an atheist, fine. But you don't get to bring ghosts along with you. That's right. It's right. I mean, blessed be God forever, the Holy Ghost, third person, the Holy Trinity. And all of the spiritual world, angels, Catholics, any Christian, like, it's not some kind of, oh, you're that kind of Christian. That's Christianity 101. We believe in spiritual reality. Leach is making a great point here. You want to be an atheist, you want to be full materialist, you don't get to have ghosts. Those are mutually exclusive principles. Oh, I'm an atheist. Everything is materialistically determined. I'm a Darwinist. a universe that just works on its own, maybe deism, clockworker wound and left alone. Oh, but I believe in this creepy ghost haunted house. No.
Or even worse nowadays, by the way, here's this 400 page book on witchcraft that just sits on my shelf. And I take it very seriously and I practice it every day, but by the way, I'm just an atheist material.
Yeah, it's not real. Exactly. What a joke. Exactly. It's all or nothing. How great is that? I mean, it's like, that's great philosophy. It's true. That's true. Materialism, Chesterton said to that point, you know, the materialist must not allow for 1 ounce of mystery in his system. If the materialist allows for 1 real ghost apparition, then he's not a materialist anymore. As Ecclesiastes says, one fly spoils a whole barrel of ointment. Okay, this is about football. It's like a little breakfast. You eat ham and eggs. As coaches and players, we're like the ham. You see the chicken's involved, but the pig's committed. We're like the pig, they're like the chicken. They're involved, but everything we have rides on this. Yeah, the pig dies for the breakfast. That's the coach. He's like all in. See the pressure I'm under as a coach? All you people are like, well, why does football coach make millions of dollars? Because I'm the pig who died from this breakfast. The players just laid the eggs. They can transfer, leave. Nothing has done more to bring people of different races and different backgrounds together than athletics. Certainly more than politicians have done. It's why the Greeks invented the Olympics. Pierre de Coubertin, when he brings back the Olympics in 1896 for the first time since the year 330, that was his whole idea. France had just gotten their butt handed to them on a silver platter by the Germans in the Franco-Prussian War of 1871, and he wanted strong young men for the armed forces. But he also hoped that the martial passions of humanity, which Leach acknowledged before, let me read it again. If you get into a fight, don't take your helmet off. We're looking for smart football players, not dumb ones. Looking for smart football players, not dumb ones. People like to fight. People like to do war. People have said, bless you, that the oldest passion, the oldest pastime really of humanity is fighting wars. So Leach says, well, like Coubertin, maybe having sports can be a conduit, an outflow, a release of that pressure into something less violent. Quote 14, Lubbock, Texas is where Texas Tech University is. Well, outside of Lubbock, expectations aren't very high, but it's okay. We play in Lubbock a lot this season. Maybe there's something to be said. Voltaire finishes Candide with tend your own garden. Maybe there is something to be said about focus on your own deal. Who cares if everyone thinks you suck or you're nothing or nobody? I always use your alma mater as an example, Wyoming Catholic College. Not a lot of people know about Wyoming Catholic College. People, when they find out about it, are like, it's a great place. They've got a great program. Maybe they live this quote. A lot of our games are played in Lubbock. Who cares what the world thinks or knows about us? We should focus on our own deal. Christ says in the kind of, don't not judge, remove your own beam before removing your brother's splinter. Other people think we're not good or whatever. Well, we play a lot here. We're going to get our own house in order first. He's basically saying charity starts at home. Good football playing starts at home. Quote number 15. On being asked what bowl game he wanted to go after his first season at Tech, notching a 7-5 record, which is not very good. 7-5 is to be bowl eligible. You have to win 6 games, basically break even. He said Rose Bowl, which is it's called the granddaddy of them all, the best bowl game. Leach is an amazing philosopher because he never compromises integrity. They want him to say something like the Valero Care Alamo Bowl, the Moscow Idaho Snow Bowl, whatever, sponsored by Chick-fil-A and Denny's. And he's like, no, I want to be in the best. And then the response would be like, how dare you? You're 7-5, your team sucks. No, that's our goal. We're never going to lower the bar. The true philosopher always aims at the idealized state. I think that the days before cell phones, when it was dirt-clawed wars at construction sites, were a lot more wholesome and productive, to be perfectly honest. You guys agree? I think the days before cell phones, when it was dirt-clawed wars at construction sites, were a lot more wholesome and productive. Productive too, to be honest. The work site now, where it's just everyone on their break, right, at lunch, it was better when they were throwing dirt clods. So let's get back to work. Is that right? Was it better before? Yes or no?
It depends. Certain uses the cell phone. Because from a business point of view, it should have projects moving along more smoothly than without them, because
The cell phones help accelerate business
for
contacts.
example,
Okay.
I took my cell phone one day and it was one of the brick phone and left it in my coat pocket in my office, cubicle, whatever it was, and walked somewhere else, and they couldn't get a hold of me. And it put Eagle in the dark, the town of Eagle in the dark for about 5 hours. After that, I carried that sucker with me. It was a simple question, really people understand, but anyway. So the cell phones can be quite useful from an industrial business.
Sure.
But you're saying to be obsessed is not useful.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Leach, if you can already figure this out now, like Ryan's idea for the tech-free car was very anti-tech. He hated it. I'm gonna read you a fun quote about that. Actually, I'll read it right now. So this is hilarious. Quote number 25. Remember, we're not doing 25 now or 29 because we read it. 29 was aliens. 25 about tech. Twitter is now banned around here. So don't expect anything on Twitter. He banned Twitter from his football team. Twitter is now banned around here, so don't expect anything on Twitter. Twitter's banned. And quite frankly, if after today you see anything on Twitter from our team, I don't care if it says, quote, "I love life." I would like to see it because I will suspend them. So he's like, I'm not banning Twitter because they're going to put on some kind of like vulgar stuff or distractions, or maybe coaches talk about bulletin board material. Like if you were playing for Mississippi State and Old Miss sucks, whatever, and they're going to use that to get fired up. He's like, if they write down there the most like, it's so philosophically beautiful too. What can be more innocent and good than tweeting, "I love life. Love is good. Life. I love life." He's like, even if they write, "I love life," they're fired. You know, they're banned. They're going to be in the doghouse. Leach was not a fan of social media. Here's speaking about a reality too, not just for football coaches, but for all kind of work, the feast or famine reality of life. How often is it true that you're either hated or loved? Christ is welcomed in Jerusalem with palms. Hosanna in the highest, and he's crucified, right? 0 to 100. And Leach is saying here, as a head coach, you're on 2 lists. You're the guy that might get fired, or you're the guy who might go somewhere. Given these 2 lists, I guess that's the one to be on, the guy who might go somewhere. What that means is, like, as a football coach, you're either like fire him, or promotion to some like perfect job. We have a very good football coach here at U of I, Coach Eck. Huge fan. From the Vandal guys that I know I've talked to, they seem to love him. I say the same thing too for over at WSU, Coach Dickert. People and the guy before him, before Dickert, Rolovich. I've actually met Rolovich before. He's a really, really nice guy. So God bless these people. It's awesome to see people who could be all like, "Oh, I'm this high football coach," or seem to be pretty down to earth and cool people. That's been my experience, which is very awesome. Coach Eck, the coach here at U of I, did a great job last year. All the Vandal guys that I know who are on the team say he's like a father. He's a great dude. So check mark number 1, maybe Mike Leach, big-hearted guy. He's also very good at football. The Vandals are not usually great. They were in the playoffs last year. Eck is probably going to be on the list if he continues to get promoted to like become the head coach at USC or UCLA. And so Leach, being very philosophically sound, is that's the reality of coaching. You're either hated and let's fire him, or promote him. There's almost never like, he's just great how he is. So he's like, if you're going to be on one list, you might as well be the guy that you want to be promoted, because you can always say, "No, I want to stay here," right? Of those 2 lists, it's always kind of maybe better to be on that one list. I would go to Black Cypress if you really want to make a good impression. High-end Black Cypress. I talked to Nick beforehand because he has the menu and it's really good. He's got some appetizers. He'll come by and keep hitting you up. Here's this, try that. And I think it should work out really well. So Leach is kind of an informal restaurant connoisseur. Ryan Alexander, your presence is always so welcomed. As you head off your next class, the book you have until, that's our last 3 classes, starting David Foster Wallace next class. Have a wonderful day. Leach was kind of a restaurant connoisseur in the area, but Black Cypress, I would admit to some personal like thing here. My brother-in-law, Lars, was a bartender at Black Cypress. I've met the owner, Nick, who he's talking about here, is a fantastic guy. Black Cypress is very, very good. They recently won some kind of award, which is cool to say. Leach was a big fan. Quote 19, I've already read it. Disco, what a dark time for our country. What do you think? Were the 70s, I mean, disco is stagflation, Jimmy Carter, oil crisis, and disco is right at the center. Was disco a dark time for our country? Who's like, I miss bell bottoms, disco, strobe light. What do you think? What a dark time for our country. Logical or logical?
I'd like to know more of why he said that.
He-
Other than okay.
Yeah, no.
Context.
And Leach-
Exactly, but what was his context?
Right. Leach just dropped the philosophy. What a dark time for our country.
Bring back the focus, huh?
Bring back polka, maybe. I don't know.
What?
Polka.
Oh, well,
Here's Leach on fishing. Now, why would you want to use live bait? It seems to me the faster, more active fish would have to take the live bait, but that's not what you want, is it? You want the big fish. I'm a big fat lazy fish. I'm not gonna work. I'm gonna eat the dead fish. It wouldn't make a difference to me, would it? Fish aren't smart. It's not like they have advanced degrees. So don't use live bait to get big fat lazy fish, which is what you want. I got my law degree at Pepperdine. I think the legal profession is somewhat corrupted. When it comes to lawyers, I think it's kind of a catch-22. On one hand, there's so much process, procedure, and mess caused by the legal profession. But on the other hand, the only way to sort through all that process, procedure, and mess is through the legal profession. That's why I think lawyers are both very destructive and very necessary. It's like if you have two guys coming after you with a sword, well, you better have a sword too. That's kind of a great summation of the lawyer system. Even lawyers make jokes about, yeah, we're scumbags, we're awful, we hate lawyers. But it's like, maybe sometimes you need a lawyer. I mean, just again, I say this for 1,000th time, but like, God bless Mike Leach. I mean, he really is like the place it's coming from. Like if he was a chair of philosophy at some school, he's a philosopher. The fact that he could do hilarious, common sense, common man, blue collar philosophy as a football coach, that platform with his humor, I mean, just like, it's a treasure. And again, if you only liked Mike Leach for his skill as a football coach, there was a lot to like. Again, he's probably the most brilliant, strictly speaking, offensive mind maybe ever in coaching. His teams were never elite because they often were like, they didn't have the highest recruits, like I said, and his defenses often gave up a lot of points. But if you like seeing guys throw for every year, his quarterback had the most passing yards in America. If you like exciting football, it's like, so if you just like him as a football coach, if he was the most boring guy and just couldn't speak and was totally mute, he'd still be great. But it's like, I actually think his philosophy is even more, will have more of a long-standing impact. He might, in my mind, he's the most interesting man ever to coach college football. Or maybe any kind of coach. He's the most interesting athletic coach ever.
So you saying if a guy comes at you with a sword,
you better have a sword too, yeah.
If he's serious and really wants to harm it, I think I just have a concealed carry.
There you go. So what is that? So then maybe that's being a politician who's above the law. I don't know. Yeah. I'm a thin crust pizza guy. I respect people who like thin crust, thick crust, but in my mind, that's just bread. Yeah, I think that's pretty funny. First of all, I kind of agree with that. If you have thin crust pizza, it's probably better for you health-wise. If you're like, I want to cut down on my carbs, you're also going to enjoy the pizza more. If the thin crust is well built, doesn't fall apart, you can enjoy the tomatoes, the avocado, the bacon, like whatever on top. If it's just thick crust, it's just a huge piece of bread. Why not just eat bread? I mean, he's kind of right. One night, my pet raccoon, this is from his story when he was a kid. One night, my pet raccoon, Bilbo Baggins, his actual name, character from Lord of the Rings. One night, my pet raccoon, Bilbo Baggins, got particularly feisty. So my dad and I drove him out to the woods. Once we found a good spot, we stopped and I put him on the ground and took his collar off. He kind of ambled about, taking in the new surroundings. I preface this next part by saying I do think humans and animals share an unspoken understanding to some extent. That's why it's so easy to bond with pets. So this is how I remember saying goodbye to Bilbo. He wandered 10 yards away or so from the truck, and then he turned and looked at us and kind of had this expression like, it was nice knowing you. Code 24, we're almost done. I could read these all day. There's in fact some book that I'm forgetting now. Swing Your Sword is his like autobiography, which I think, by the way, too, huge props to Mike Leach. I think he actually wrote it himself, which I would expect from a man who's so interesting, so intelligent, has a law degree. But like all these coaches, swing your sword with whatever, with this guy who just wrote it for you, kind of ghostwriter. I think Leach wrote his own book, Swing Your Sword. That's not the book I'm thinking about. There's another book some other people wrote about him that lists all of his quotes, like 699 quotes or something. I only have 30 for you, but I think 30 is enough to get across my point. I think it's been well made. I think we're having a good time with this. Like, this is kind of like on the fly, blue collar, postmodern philosophy that I think has a lot of kind of like plumber's logic to it. I haven't noticed almost any fallacies here, really, in his thinking, sincerely. He's not appealing to the masses. He's not creating straw men. He seems to be kind of speaking true things. Even like the last story, He let his raccoon off. The raccoon looked at him and goodbye. Yep, that seems like the animal's like, okay, nice knowing you. Never gonna see you again. I'm in the wild. I mean, there's even like in these really hilarious kind of there's truth here. He's talking about people on a date and how technology is gonna endanger the propagation of species. All this button pushing and whatnot. I mean, you can just imagine based on what's happening in the past, it happened in the past 15 years. Conversations won't happen 10 years from now. There aren't going to be people to talk to. It's going to be like this. And he mimes typing on a phone. Do you want to go on a date with me? I don't know. What do you look like? Well, I kind of look like this. Okay, what are your interests? What do you think my interests are? Looking into this thing and typing into this, just like yours are. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, no kidding. That's what everyone's doing. Well, where do you want to go? Well, what difference does it make? Because all we're going to be doing is looking into machines anyways. Well, that's true. And in the end, it's going to be tough to perpetuate the species. Isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? How do you see young man, young woman, college kids, good looking couple on a date, and they're not talking, they're texting stuff, and you're supposed to be bonding, right? Like, what are you guys doing? This is hilarious. 26. You read 25 about Twitter, right? 26. Some of the players have been great at effort. Some of them have been very poor. Some of them have this kind of like zombie-like quality. Go through the motions. Everything it's like how it's always been, how it always be. That's not pleasant to say or think about it, but that's a fact. That some players are just zombies. It's so good. Like some guys come out to practice and give it their best. Remember, you're going to be dead in 100 years, carpe diem. But it's like some guys, it's like, is there anything going on in there? Like, okay, yeah, coach. Okay. I'm like half hustle. They're just like zombie dead man walking guys. And he's like,
Robotic, yeah.
robots.
Does a cell phone really mess up a guy's basic interest in girls?
I don't know. It's a good.
Depending on where you keep it.
This is exactly, and this is where this philosophy is so serious. This is where, like, yeah, I'm serious. This is so funny. These are not just like, let's read these quotes and laugh. Like, that's a great question. How corrosive is technology versus, like, I like your defenses of it when you were talking about the work site and it accelerates business. True philosophical speculations, going back to St. Thomas Aquinas, we know are very open-ended and like, let's follow the facts wherever they lead. So I'm not trying to say that everything Leach says is like perfectly like it's the final word. He's a good philosopher. And again, I 100% assign that title to him. He is as much a philosopher in my mind as he was a football coach. Oh, he's a philosopher. No scare quotes. He's a philosopher, period. He's really a thinking man, was a thinking man. And he's just putting out these things out there to the best of his ability. And they're very intelligent and funny and smart. They build these other conversations, right? He keeps talking about this. How sick or healthy is the dating pool? How are these people, like, where does tech factor in? These are great questions. Great question. About his team, which could be a question about culture. We're a very soft team. We get a lot of good press. We like to read a lot. We like to pat ourselves in the back. And if we get any resistance, we fold. We're fat, dumb, happy, and entitled. Is that not kind of how America is? Let's paraphrase Leach, but put the country in. We're a very soft country. We get a lot of good press. We like to read about a lot. We like to pat ourselves in the back and get any resistance, we fold. We're fat, happy, dumb, entitled. Is that not kind of true about America? Have we lost some of these old, like, founding fathers virtues and stuff? And last two quotes from Leach, then we're done. My favorite weather pattern happens to be when it rains mud. Dust comes through, rain on top of it, and it rains mud. This is him doing a real weather report on a local station in Texas. Now, I know that people that have been here for a while don't like that particular phenomenon as well as I do, but think about it. How many times in your life are you actually going to see it rain mud? Philosophers say one of the most beautiful characteristics of being a philosopher is the cognitive sense of wonder. Wonder is the beginning of all philosophy. Look out the window, see mud raining, and ponder the universe, ponder God's creation. Last quote, it's about dying. It's great. Leach, may God rest his soul again. And all sympathy to those, affected by his loss. Hopefully he's, smiling down in heaven. And people had a lot of beautiful, fun quotes like, Mike Leach is going to be asking God about candy corn and stuff. Because Leach was like, after interviews, he'd be like, I hate candy corn. I hate Halloween candy. Like, imagine people are saying, imagine the questions that Leach is going to be asking God. So we pray that that's the case. And may God rest his soul. This is a very interesting quote too. Very funny, but interesting. I think when you die, you continue to progress. You continue to grow in a kind of elevated state. I don't think you sit there and wallow around and play the harp. Now, St. Paul famously says about heaven what? Eye is not seen, ear is not heard. Neither has it entered into the mind of mind what God has prepared for those who love him. We don't know what heaven's going to be like, except it's perfect joy, that beatific vision of beholding God for all eternity. Leach is bespeaking that. He's basically saying, oh yeah, we have this popular notion in culture of people sitting playing a harp. That does sound boring. That would be boring. It's not it. And maybe you do, heaven is the absence of time. Maybe you do progress in an elevated state of just endless waves of loving God, God loving you, loving each other. And it's like Leach, who is not a Catholic, and I don't know how religious he was or not. I have honestly no idea. It's actually cool for the purpose of this episode, because it's like we're just taking the philosophy on its own. All I know religiously is that he grew up LDS. Whether he kept that faith in his adulthood or not, I have no idea. Whether he, yeah, go ahead.
It's not harps in heaven, maybe it's banjos. That's supposed to be the happiest.
Maybe it's banjos. Yeah, that's funny. And see, these kind of speculative things, they're it's a very funny comment. It's awesome to think about. It's like, what must that be like? And so I'm not surprised at all that this guy, was thinking these things all the time. Even this, again, everything he said was so goofy and funny and warmed your heart. But I really hope this episode has convinced some people, at least, there's a lot of philosophical weight to what he said. And it's fun to consider that. And what about, maybe Mike Leach is the kind of poster boy of our class, because it's been the whole time blue collar logic. And the guy who comes in and fixes your pipes in the blue jumpsuit, the blue collar worker, can he understand this? And that's the hallmark of good philosophy, not some pretentious guy sipping wine in an Italian piazza, making up words and just being pretentious for its own sake. Can it be common sense? And Leach was very much a philosopher of common sense truth. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful, awesome day. See you on Wednesday. Goodbye, Betsy. Goodbye, everyone online.